Legends of History, Episode 1, Mopar Big Block. The Mopar Big Block was introduced in 1958 with the 361. It had a 4 1/8 inch bore and a 3 3/8 inch stroke. It made between 280 and 350 horsepower with upwards of 400 pound-feet of torque. In 1959, they introduced the 383 cubic inch motor, as well as bringing in the RB raised block motor, displacing 413 cubic inches. The 383 had a larger bore at 4.25 inches, as well as larger valves, with the intake being 2.08 inches wide. In 1960, the Ram Air dual quad intake led to 330 horsepower and 460 foot-pounds of torque, long for street applications. The longer length helped with the low-end torque. The 413 has a 4.1875 inch bore with a 3.75 inch stroke. In 1959, with dual inline 4-barrel carbs, it made 380 horsepower and 525 foot-pounds of torque. In 1960, the dual ram intake was put onto the 413 on the Max Wedge package, making 420 horsepower and 480 foot-pounds of torque. This motor dominated the street stock NHRA class. The 426 motor, not to be confused with the 426 Hemi, has a 4.25 inch bore and the same stroke as the 413. While the motor did not make significantly more power than the 413, it was able to handle much higher RPM. The motor made 425 horsepower and 490 foot-pounds of torque. This engine powered the top stock Eliminator Mopar cars to a trap speed of 112 miles per hour and a quarter-mile time of 12.4 seconds. It also helped dominate NASCAR in the early 1960s. The biggest factory big block was the 440. It was introduced in 1965 with a bore of 4.32 inches and the same stroke as the previous two RB motors. The motor was designed more for street performance while compared to the 426. The six-pack, which consisted of 3 2-barrel Holley Performance carburetors, made 390 horsepower with 490 foot-pounds of torque. After 1972, the 440 was subject to emission controls and the horsepower dropped to between 255 and 280 horsepower. The 440 was used in police cars, full-size cars, performance vehicles, trucks, and motorhomes. The last big block built was the 400, which was a B block with the same 3 3/8 stroke as the 383, but had the largest bore of any big block at 4.342 inches. The engine was introduced in 1972 to replace the 383. The motor only made 250 horsepower in stock form. Chrysler stopped producing the big block after 1978, yet the aftermarket remained strong. With the bore of the 400, stroker kits of 512 cubic inches have become commonplace. The factory-designed purple shaft cams are still produced to this day. The Big Block Mopar is one of the most sought-after engines in the classic car industry. It is known for its massive torque, solid horsepower, and brutal sound, as well as being the power plant of some of the most beloved Mopar muscle cars from the 1960s and 1970s. Thank you for watching.